All praises be to Yahweh Bashim, Yahweh Shai, Yahweh Kakudash. Yahweh being who people call God, Yahweh Shai being who people call Jesus. Double honors to the apostles, my apostles over the great millstone church. Salutations as well to the elder bishops, on down to the rest of the elders, and I can also the branches, holding forth this true word for true life and all true faith and sincerity. So coming back with another lesson, just some quick, basically update news, edification on the great divide, you know, ultimately, if you will, that was spoke about in the Bible, in the scriptures, that was prophesied specifically by the Messiah himself regarding these Edomites and their kingdom, in the last days. All right, because we know Esau, the so-called white man, is ruler in the last days. You know, he prophesied that there will be ultimately a divide, right? It will be a divide as being the source, ultimately, if you will, a major X factor in the falling, the final fall, the falling of them from power, you know, all the way back to the bottom to never rule again, you know, and ultimately the way in which, once they're out the way, Jacob is able to come forth. Where Jacob will, the entire time while, he would be on his tail, he would be on his heels, as is laid out in the scriptures symbolically. So I just want to use this article to get into this, you know, because this is indeed gonna happen. The Lord told us before. Matter of fact, let me grab that. Let's do this. Let's go to. Let's just go here. Let's go to Matthew 12. Second. 12 and 25. And Yahweh Shah knew their thoughts and said unto them, every kingdom divided against itself is brought to desolation. And every city or house divided against itself shall not stand. So that translates to America, and it translates to the house of Esau, the stock of Esau, the family of Esau, these Edomites. They're divided. You got the 1%, you got the elite bankers, you know what I'm saying? You got the oligarchy in comparison to everybody else, in a disconnect when it comes to being in relation to the rest of the Edomites. All right, and because of that, that will bring, there go white supremacy. There go white supremacy, and then since Esau runs obviously America and all these cities, what does that lead to? That leads to you seeing divides within these cities or cities between cities, as Yahweh Bashim Shah had us prophesy. So as you see in this article, it says Donald Trump is about to launch phase 2 of a truly terrible plan. Politics. This is from an hour ago, right? As of today being September so-called 15, 2025, it says Donald Trump is advancing into a controversial second phase of his political strategy, focusing on silencing critics and targeting perceived enemies within both Democratic and Republican parties. See that? So he's focused on it's a political struggle. It's political tension. It's a divide within the very system of Esau's rulership, the so-called white man's rulership. Within the very it's a virus ultimately. It's a stuttering within the system of so-called white supremacy that we see. And now that that's starting to happen, you're gonna start to see that slow down and them just be no more. Things not being in their favor because they destroying themselves. It says within both democratic. So it says his political strategy focusing on silencing critics and targeting perceived enemies within both Democratic and Republican parties. This escalation highlights ongoing tension as Trump seeks to consolidate power. See that? So they're not spreading the wealth anymore. Rome is falling. Because when you go back into Rome, Rome had the patricians and the plebeians, the patris and the plebeians. The word patricians go back to patris, which means the fathers, right? The council of 300, basically. Men, which was bloodlines, in which it was done in response to the people who they made believe, just like they did, starting this place off, Rome coming back again 2.0, in its final leg, I should say, and that being America. Being the face, but being America, being what was I about to say? The same case now. People believing that they got a right to vote, they got a damn opinion that count, that matter. Nah, man, nah. And it's crazy because these people that's being made to believe that are so-called white people themselves. You see that? So that's why I said not only every kingdom, right, but every house. House, when you go to that word house, let's get it. Let's read it one more time. And your house shall do their thoughts. It said unto them, who you call Jesus, Matthew 12:25, who people call Jesus. Every kingdom divided against itself is brought to desolation. Complete ruin, shambles no more. Despite how, long it took to build or how great it was, in people's eyes when it was built, like Rome. They said it wasn't built in a day, but it failed quicker than it, took to build. This place wasn't built in a day. Rome 2.0, but it's gonna fall in a day. It's gonna fall in less than a day. It's gonna fall in an hour. You see that? So, completely brought to nothing. Everything they worked on, because why they're divided against themselves. But get to the point: in every city or a house divided against itself shall not stand. So let's get that word house in the Greek.
Strong's G 3614, oikia. Oikia.
See, outline of biblical usage. Sometimes it could be a house, and a house of an inhabited house of edifice or edifice, a dwelling, the inmates of a house. But just the point, as you see, the family, right? Your family of the Edomites, which is a lot of them. You got the dukes of Edom, and then you got the non-dukes, just the regular Edomites. All right. So, it says when you go to the root word,
Strong's G 3624, oikos. Oikos.
The word house going back to oikos ultimately, and it means when you jump down to 2, right? Roman numeral 2, the inmates of a house, all the persons forming one family. See, all the persons forming one family. All right. Which is different Edomites. They lay that out in the scriptures. What is that? That's Genesis 36. Now these are the generations of Esau, who was Edom. Meaning what? These are pretty much the members. All right, the descendants. All those that help make up one family. See that? It says descendants of Esau, and these are the generations of Esau, the father of the Edomites in Mount Seir. All right. So all the members that help make up these people, this family. So a genealogical, this the word in the Hebrew. You got the whytuh, or the waladwath, the wala. That's a da wath. All right, but the point being, as you see in the outline of biblical uses here, descendants, genealogical list of one's descendants. Yeah, and that's basically it. Account of men and their descendants. Look, i.e., that's it. Family, i.e., family. So when it says these are the generations, because this word generation means family, right? It says now it's basically saying these are the family of Esau, right? Or the family members. So we come back to this Matthew 12 to get to the point, and it says every house, right? We now know the word go back to oikos, which ultimately meant what? Family, but specifically said what? Oikos. In the number 2. See that? That's what we read. The inmates of a house, all the persons of forming one family and household. But when you go to 3, it says what? Roman numeral number 3. Stock. See? Stock, family, descendants of one. So that's what that word ultimately means. So stand on the point. He said every family, every stock, every race going against himself, is not going to stand. And that's what you see in the NLT. Yahushua knew their thoughts and replied, any kingdom divided by civil war is doomed. A town or family splintered by feuding. See, a town or family. So this is talking about Esau. Splintered by feuding will fall ultimately, it says, will fall apart. That's it. And if Satan is casting out Satan, see that which Trump is, he casting out other people that's devilish like him, because they're pointing out his devilish ways. He is divided against himself, but they all devils. They all working for, against the truth. They all working for a lie. It says, and if Satan is casting out Satan, Salakia, he is divided and fighting against himself. His own kingdom will not survive. All right. So that's basically the point. So it says this escalation, back to the article, highlights ongoing tensions as Trump seeks to consolidate power and influence as he navigates the political landscape. So when it says he's looking to he's seeking to consolidate power. When you consolidate something, you're just bringing it down to being smaller than what it is, like to where it's easier control there. It's easier to control, so it ain't gonna be all over the place. So they're not spreading the wealth anymore. They're not spreading the he say, she say. They're not letting everybody's opinion even be believed to matter, And that's amongst who? So-called white people. So you're seeing the end of this crap. It says this article examines the implications of his actions as reported by Powell. All right. So as you see right here, man, and I'm going to just read a little bit of this and that'll be it. It says Donald Trump has entered a new stage in his political fight. See, the first stage was mostly about silencing anyone, this is in specifics now, who criticized him, which we've seen with the, in the many different forms. You know what I'm saying? When he first came in, it was time on YouTube where, they was trying to crack down on that. And then even now, with the new YouTube guidelines they trying to usher. But mainly, their beef is not amongst this, just the regular. They got an issue amongst themselves. The system's broken. It's failing. Esau bugging out. They losing it. It says he went after people he saw as enemies. Not only Democrats who investigated him during his first term, but also Republicans and even people he had once appointed, like John Bolton, if they later turned against him. He also targeted universities that spoke out about issues such as Israel's actions in Palestine, racism in U.S. history, or diversity programs. In addition, he attacked the media, cutting funding for public outlets like PBS. And see, this is all ended. NPR, while relying on friendly billionaires who own big news companies to keep criticism of him quiet. See that? So, like I was going into back then, they had the patricians versus the plebeians ultimately, where it was ultimately let me get it right. I believe it started as a monarch, and then it came down to that, right? Um, but ultimately, it's a monarch still because all of devils was in agreements. You know, like they say, the new world order. You know, the one world, everybody being one. You know, but now he seems to be entering a sacred stage, one that is more aggressive and aimed at crushing all his political opponents, including the entire Democratic Party. He has said he will send troops into Democratic-run cities like Washington, D.C., Chicago, Memphis, and New Orleans. So it's bigger than Jake. A part of the prophecies, hence the Babylon, the daughter of Babylon being thrown down with great violence, is not just going to be upon Jake getting attacked and Jake fighting back. It's going to be upon there being an uprising of or a feuding and fighting between so-called white people, because they divided against themselves, and a lot of them, in the cities fighting against each other, city against city, but a lot of them going to be fighting back against the government, helping destroy this place. So this is how this is all going to play out, as you see. So because it's telling you, he said he will send troops into Democratic-run cities like Washington, D.C., Chicago, Memphis, and New Orleans, right? Just to mess with them, out of spite. Because obviously there's no so-called black governor over these states that house these cities, these capitals. You see that? Barely even got damn so-called black mayors, But it says, and they sell outs anyway, but it says claiming crime is out of control, even through statistics show crime has been going down. So he basically taking their own power from them. So now, they don't even see so-called white people, and the dumb being so-called white people that's like the so-called white Edomite or the so-called white mayors, white governors. Now they don't. Now these so-called white people who are in these positions aren't seeing so-called white people go for them that have the power to go for them and make sure they on point. It's not really a white supremacy thing necessarily. It's an elite supremacy thing, but who happen to be so-called white people or the top of so-called white people, if you will. And then you got to see the people that's not even in these positions that look up to these leaders who are so-called white people, seeing that they're not even going for us anymore. So it's just going to bring a bigger divide. So that's why I say it's the great divide ultimately. So that's basically the point. It's crazy. It says, claiming crime is out of control, even though statistics show crime has been going down. At the same time, he has been directing federal disaster aid only to Republican states. He won, openly bragging about rewarding his supporters and punishing his opponents. So it's petty. Trump has also been pressuring. So he's willing to destroy so-called white people that went against him. Even if it's states of them, even if it means destroying the whole state. When he's the president over 50 states. So he's willing to it's just dumb. They're just dumb, man. He's willing to have them all going against him and have everybody basically have a narrative and a perception that, it's just everybody have to go for themselves. So there's no such thing as white supremacy anymore. And you can see it. But it says, Trump has been pressuring Republican-led states like Texas and Ohio to withdraw election maps to give Republicans more seats in Congress. He has started calling Democrats evil, quote unquote evil, and labeling the entire party as radical left. When Charlie Clerk was murdered, Trump quickly used the strategy to attack Democrats and liberals, saying they are dangerous and must be defeated. See that? So it's crazy. It says he has Trump's close advisor has been especially vocal in framing Democrats and government workers as part of a radical, destructive ideology. He describes them as people who hate family. See that? Who hate family, faith, and tradition while glorifying criminals. He promised that under Trump, government power will be used to hunt down political enemies, strip them of money and influence, and imprison them if possible. And that's how many so-called white people tons. See? So I'm going to end here. So basically, civil war is happening. Matthew 12 and 25, Yahweh knew their thoughts and reply in the NLT. Any kingdom divided by civil war. See? Because that's what they're causing, civil war. Because it's for political power. You know? White people tired of white people. They don't want to share the wealth. You know? Trump's tired of so-called white people. So-called white people tired of him. You know? So-called white people getting tired of each other in general because they like this. It says, these Edomites. So it says, a town or family splintered by feuding will fall apart. And if Satan is casting out Satan, he is divided and fighting against himself. His own kingdom will not survive. And this is what the Lord was getting at. So this is why it says Esau is the end of the world and Jacob is the beginning of it that follow it. It's amazing, man. You know, because it's mainly going to go down by Esau, you know, himself. Afflicted himself, doing things that's only going to destroy him and his kingdom. You know, and loosen the grip that, you know, ultimately his people have on the earth. You got hella people that know so much about what so-called white people been doing, who actually run the earth, that's just gonna start to be exposed, and they ain't gonna be able to do nothing, man. They're not gonna be able to hide themselves, you know. So that's why you Jakes better stop kissing these people ass. They on their way out, bro. This is 2nd Exodus 15 in the GNT in the 14th verse. The world and the people in it are doomed. The war that will bring their destruction is very near. The nations will arm themselves and fight against other nations. Get to the point, though. There will be great political power turmoil, with one group trying to overpower another and gain control while ignoring the legitimate government. So these so-called white people, you know, people gonna want to take their power back. The people at the top gonna want to not have people able to have so much say. You know, because white people always so-called doing that. So they just tired of each other. Because Jake don't know what's going on. So it's bigger than Jake. You know, it's all for Jake because of Jake. You know, but you still got details within to where this thing playing out like this. And that's basically it. And it's yeah, that's basically the point, man. There will no longer be free access to the cities. Exactly, you see it in that. That's why he's sending the troops out, as it said, in spite. Just to shun or spite, you know, the other leaders that's there. It says, who are so-called white people, because the struggle for power will bring destruction, terror, and total confusion wherever people live. And that's how America is going to be thrown down by much violence, the daughter of Babylon. And ultimately what? These cities, as the Lord said, are going to be, hence these towns are not going to be able to stand. It said the city shall be destroyed because of their great power. Esau so damn prideful, you know, because these ones believe in what they stand in so hard and being patriotic and all of this crap. Like they're gonna believe that, you know, to their own destruction. They're gonna stand on that even if it means destroying themselves, each other, and losing their own grip, man. So I'm gonna say call I'm like y'all bust me, I'll shout till next time. Shalom.